Hey, it's Alex
and Bella
from Let's Not Sugarcoat It, a podcast where each week we bring you real, raw, and unfiltered conversations.
Our guests share their life's journeys in entrepreneurship, relationship, parenthood, and much, much more
in an authentic and raw way where no one sugarcoats life's messes and successes.
Make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any of your favorite podcast apps, and tune in every Wednesday for new episodes.
Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Well, check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something that will inspire you. Just go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. That's Deal to Heal Teas. Get some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. That's Deal to Heal Teas at dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Hi guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I'm your host, Earnest James. And on my podcast, my guest and I discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with their problems, heal from the pain, and to fulfill their purpose. So check out our podcast. We're on Google Podcasts, Spotify, or even on Audible. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel at Deal to Heal with E. James Podcast. Until then, see you soon. Welcome to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with E. James. We believe that the relationship between a dad and daughter is one of the most important relationships in a woman's life. Our mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by spreading the voices of girl dads to the world and give love and support to all of our dads and their daughters. Let's get to it. Let's tune in. Hey, welcome to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. I am your host, Earnest James, and we believe that the relationship between a father and daughter is one of the most important relationships in a woman's life. And therefore, our mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by spreading the voices of girl dads to the world and give love and support to all of our dads and their daughters. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to listen, like, subscribe, and share our podcast on all of our social media pages at the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. Don't keep it to yourself. Share with someone else. Let someone know that we are on the air. Also, make sure you subscribe to our podcast on YouTube. We actually share a channel with our partner podcast, the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. So when you go to YouTube, you will look up the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, and you will not only find the playlist for the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, but also for the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. Also, I'm going to tell you guys how you can win $100 from the podcast, but you have to stay until the end in order to get that information. Stay until the end. So once again, thank you guys for tuning in to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. And today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest, Mr. Deuce. How are you doing?
Hey, what's going on, man? Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
No problem. First of all, let me say thank you for being on. You could have been doing anything else with anyone else, but you're here with us, so we definitely appreciate it. So do me a favor, introduce yourself to my audience and tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Okay. Hey guys, my name is Deuce Alston. I live right outside of DC in PG County. I am I'm in the government contracting space. I'm a former college professor, and I am a girl dad. My daughter is 5 years old. So that's what we here to talk about. So I can get
All
to
right, all right. That's exactly it. And so, first question I always have to remember to ask, because a lot of times we jump into these conversations and we forget to ask, what is your daughter's name?
only because I don't like to put her name out there. So I
Okay, no problem. Right,
that's
I was gonna say we'll just say baby girl, leave it at that. I just
yeah.
know a lot of times I forget to ask, and then we was like, yeah, my daughter, and we never even mention who the daughter is. So, but we're thankful for baby girl, man. So, first of all, let's go all the way back to the beginning. And how did you even find out that you were going to be a dad?
Through conversation. But it started rocky. I'm not gonna lie about it. I'm in a co-parenting situation, so just take from that what it is. But my more formal introduction to my daughter happened in 2019. Actually, in the summer of 2019, I was in a motorcycle accident that had me unable to walk for about 2 months. And it's crazy because it happened on Father's Day night.
Hmm.
So at that time, my daughter was not even 1 yet. So I got formally introduced to her while I was in the rehab center. I couldn't walk. And here I am now coming to grips with being a father when, before the accident, I wasn't a father. And then after the accident, I am a father. And having that time to really just sit in the bed and really reflect on a lot of what I wanted out of my life, and more specifically, what I wanted to do in my daughter's life. Um,
Yeah.
that was a very pivotal moment in my life. And I'm glad I made the right decision as far as being a present father as best as I can be. I guess
What?
more into that, but yeah, I'll leave it right there for now.
Yeah. So was she born while you was in rehab, and
No, no,
then
no. She was here. Like I said,
okay,
I'm in the co-parenting dynamic, so she was here. But we wasn't
right.
diverging paths at that point.
Okay, okay. And so tell me this, even with that, um coming to the place where now you're like, you know what, this incident happened and moving forward, I'm gonna be a different person. And so that initial just coming back together with your daughter and having that initial contact, what was that first experience like now coming after that, to being like, okay, now I'm going to be real more active, and now you're back with her for the first time after accident. What was that? How was that experience?
Well, so when I was in the rehab center, you go to the surgery and then I put it was in a rehab center
Yeah,
until I could ambulate on my own. So her mother actually was bringing her up every so often. So that's how I was able to meet her. I have some pictures of being in the accident in the wheelchair and just holding her. And she's, about 7, 8 months at that time. That was, and interestingly, I can't show it. I ain't think about it, but on my phone screen is a picture that her mother took of her putting her finger at me, and I was touching her, and I just keep that on my screensaver. That's on my phone because that was like the first real introduction, and um, it's interesting because it happened right before the COVID and everything. So I'm in a space where it's like my life is about to change once I leave out this rehab center. Now, what do I need to do? I'm and interestingly enough, I was pretty much, well, I mean, that story has it. I lost my job, so I wasn't in that. I didn't know if I was losing it at that point, but I ended up losing the job I had because the guy said he didn't have any contract money for me, and that's kind of how I got into the government contract. I just out of sheer need, like necessity, right? So it was a huge transition all the way around. COVID, somewhat exacerbated that. But just coming to grips with the fact that I do have a child, and at this time, I'm in my early 30s. I had already taught 5 years in the higher ed, and I didn't really expect to have. I don't know if I really planned on having children. I don't know. At that point, it's just like I don't know. So one thing I had to do, like I said, I did a lot of reflecting and things. I was able to you're sitting in this bed. I'm able to watch YouTube, and I think more when I got home. I'll give you a prime example. So what happened when I came back home? I couldn't really move around like that, and her mom had brought her over to my house, and I'm sitting on the couch and just watching this baby, just crying, and I don't know what to do. And so a conversation was had between her and her mother that really, it tapped me. It tapped me in my mind about what this means as far as child development. And so I turned to making sure that I could be a good father. I did not want to be an absent father, and not just absent in not being there, but also absent in emotional connection with my daughter. So I started to look up on YouTube videos about, what it took to be good parents, just understanding the progression of learning and development that a child goes through. And I took heart to that. Even now, I think the thing that surprises most people is how patient I am with my daughter, considering I'm not that patient with a lot of people. Because I understand that she has to. The world is not new to me anymore, but to her, all of it is brand new. So I'm open to being patient. And I also used to teach. My background is education, and I come from this theory of sometimes you have to try some things. We set some parameters. I don't want her touching hot stoves, but there's some things that she's gonna have to try. She may have to fall, but I don't want to get hurt. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but that's the exploration, and that's the beauty of being a child and learning the world. And so I did that with her, and I still perpetually do that. One of the things that really helped me out was I talked to female friends that I had who had their father in their life, and I asked them, "What is one thing?" Even my sister, I asked her to, "What is one thing you wish your father gave you more?" Overwhelmingly, they said time. And so I said, okay, if that is what my daughter may end up asking for, I need to start that now. At the time when I came out of the rehab and stuff, I was opening up a healthy smoothie cafe. And what I realized was it was taking a lot of my personal energy and time to get it going. When I had her on the weekends and stuff, I was pretty much taking her down there to the shop. And it really hit me in the head like, hey, do I want my daughter's childhood to be stuck in a smoothie shop that she don't have any control over? And it was a tough decision, but I let the shop go. And I promise you, the weekend after I gave those keys back, I felt so relieved. I was able to do something with my daughter. And so we went out, and I know I had her in dance class at a certain point. But the ability to wake up now, and I get her pretty much every weekend and every day I possibly can. It's never, for me, it's never no issue. But I've set my life up that way. So, entrepreneurship. I set my life up so that I have the ability to be with my daughter, which brings me into COVID. And, you can cut me off if I'm, talking too much. But COVID happened. She was going to daycare. She was like 2 years old when COVID really hit. I'm still kind of rehabbing from the accident. And so me not being, not going anywhere, I had my daughter a lot during that time. And it was, her and I. We developed, and I think that's where we developed a very huge bond, like making up for lost time, all of that. We was day in, day out, up, down. I was changing her diapers. I was cooking and feeding and everything. Thank the Lord that I had her right when she wasn't on baby bottles, because
Yeah.
it's a little tumultuous for me. But
Right.
changing her diaper wasn't a problem. She could eat solid food, and she was learning to talk. She was walking, and so we could do things. And I was pretty cool with that.
Yeah.
But just seeing her grow and develop has just been a really, really engaging, experience. So I
Yeah.
turn it back to you.
Yeah, and I want to go back to something you said that was very important, and I don't think that a lot of people, especially the guys, pick up on that. You said, first of all, you went to YouTube and started looking up what it was to be a good father and to be a good parent. And I think that's so important that you had even the mind to do that, because that's one of the things that I tell people, especially when you've been, like the fatherless daughters and the fatherless sons, and when you've grown up without your father being active in your life, you don't have a reference point, but just because you grew up without it, don't mean you can't learn it, don't mean that
Right,
you can't
right,
figure out what it is. You just got to look for the information because it's all around you, And so, two things that you said you did, which is the most important things. Number one, you looked for the information, and YouTube got everything. You can find anything on YouTube. But then you went to the ladies in your life and asked them directly, like, what do you want from your father? What did you need from
right.
your father? And so that information is right there at our fingertips. And I don't think a lot of us take out the time to even think about it or to search for it. And so, like I said, when you got guys that grew up without their fathers, and even daughters that grew up without their fathers, and now their fathers and mothers, but they don't have a reference point, so
Right,
now you just winging it. You're like,
right.
no, don't wing it. Like, find out what it was that you were missing. Find out what it is to be this new person, and then become that, so that you can be healthy for your child and pour into your child helpfully.
Absolutely. And to piggyback on it, before the accident, that calendar year in early 2019, I had adopted a life coach because there was a lot of aspects of my life that I just wasn't working through, and he gave me a philosophy that I was able to use to stay positive through the accident. You get in a motorcycle accident. I was glad that my leg. I haven't lost any limbs. I didn't lose
Yeah.
my mental faculties, even though it was a harrowing ordeal. A lot of external things happened, but nothing that I can't bounce back from, physically speaking. So having adopted that life coach in the first part of that year, and then going through all of that, I used to be that would have been a very harrowing ordeal for my mental, and it wasn't going through that. It was tough to navigate it, but it was not such a bad deal, because one of the things that he showed me is the things that we see change when we change the way we look at them.
Hmm.
So not to look at things as a negative or a non-factor or unbeneficial, but to look at it as a positive. What can I get positive from this? So for me, having my daughter, it really put in perspective my life. Now, I grew up going to church, and one thing that was taught in the church is that your children aren't yours; they are just they are under your guidance
Hmm.
and your molding, but they're not your property. You know, it takes a level of selflessness to look at your children that way, instead of just saying, "Oh, these are my kids. I'm gonna do what I do." But is that the best thing for the children, for you
Right.
to operate like that? And that's what I had to constantly ask myself: is it the best thing for my daughter for me to do this and that? I went and bought another motorcycle. I ain't gonna say selfish, because I could do it, but I thought about it. It was like, it's more important. Like I said, I was getting the shop going, and then the weekends when I used to go out riding, I had my daughter. So I ended up selling my bike. There's gonna be a time when I can get on the bike again and have more free time, but them developmental years are the most pivotal. And I said that I wanted to spend as much time with her then as I could, right? So those were the type of choices that I had to make hopefully for the benefit of my daughter. You know, it'll be seen in the future, whatever. But for the benefit of my daughter, I had to make those choices and decisions. So that's why, that's one of the mindset things I thought about during that time.
Yeah, and that's good too, man. That you've come to that space that was something that was on your mind. So I used to ride too. I haven't ridden in a long time, um, but I used to ride myself, and so I know the joy that comes from that if that's something that you want to do. But having that to be like, what's the most important thing here? What's more important? To sacrifice my I won't even say my joy. I would say to sacrifice something I like to do because there's joy even more so in spending that time with your daughter. So it's
Right.
more important for me and you to take the joy of being a father over the joy of riding that bike. And like you said, you can always go back to riding that bike. But these years that you have right now with your daughter, like, yeah, I got to take advantage of that.
Right.
So my daughter is going to be 21 in a couple months. So it goes fast. It goes fast, and then you turn around and like, dang, she grown. You know what I mean? So, first of all, let me ask you this: is your daughter your only child that you have?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Cool. So just so far, because you said she's 5 now, right?
Right.
So far, what has been one of the let me say it this way. What does it mean for you personally to be a girl dad and to be a father that's raising a daughter? What does it mean to you personally?
So to answer that, I'll go back to something that happened, and unfortunately I don't remember the year, but when the news came out that Kobe Bryant had died in that accident with his daughter, I didn't. It really affected me. I mean, it wasn't. That was a lot of celebrities pass, and I generally don't take too much affinity to that, but him passing and then the stories of hearing that he was taking his daughter to the practice and how integral he was with his daughters in their life. And I mean, I heard a story. They said he grabbed his daughter and was holding her as that helicopter went down. You know what I'm saying? You don't get that on that's serious. That's a serious bond of parenting and fatherhood that it affected me when he passed, and to hear that. So that's why I started using the girl dad hashtag, because it is that important. I want my daughter to understand that I do love her. And I think one of the other blessings of this is I was blessed to have a daughter first. If I ever have other children, I don't know, but at least I had one first so I can learn how to love better. Because I am my father's son, firstborn.
Yeah.
And he's a Marine. Not a lot of hugs and Huxtable family values going on at that time. So for me, it was a lot of learning how to be tactile, hugging, saying I love you, things of that nature, and it pulled it out of me because it has to. If I want to show my child love, it's better. I mean, because I'm assuming, I don't have a son, but a son at those early ages, they need the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times as men, we don't see it that way. We're like, oh, come on, boy, get up, don't cry, But it allowed me to learn not just that I have a daughter and she needs that, but any child at those ages is going to need the babying and the coddling. So that was something that I can take for that. So what it means to me, really just to take myself from it. There's things that I still want to do. My life is not over by any means, but to be able to say, all right, not only am I thinking for myself, but I want to make sure that my daughter's okay. To make sure my daughter's okay, I have to spend time with her. But also to make sure my daughter's okay, I have to start being an active part of the community, because there's other people who are not okay and they want everybody to be okay with too, and it's okay to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's helping me be more integral to my community, and just be a just I hope that in some degrees I'm a beacon of hope, and that somebody can take something from this whole experience, which is why I'm comfortable talking about it. That they could say, hey, maybe I wasn't the best father, but I can always change at some point.
Yeah.
Just being a good father, whatever we decide, whatever we deem that is. But a lot of that is really just looking outside of yourself.
Right. Yeah, and I want to go back to something you said. First of all, with the whole situation with Kobe, that's definitely one bright light, if you could say, that came out of that situation. That it woke a lot of dads up. There were us who were already, holding that flag of girl dad and being positive and being that role model. But there was a lot of guys that wasn't, but in his passing and even in his life, but I think even more so in his passing and the fact that he passed with his daughter, it kind of opened up a whole new light shined on the girl dad community, and then you had all these fathers who looked up to Kobe as a basketball player, but never really, took the father part of it, that it now shined the light on that. And so now they're looking at Kobe in a different way and then reflecting on themselves, like, how am I, what am I doing as a father, with my daughters? And so that's one thing I can say that came out of, one blessing, should I say, that came out of that situation, is that it woke a lot of girl dads up who weren't actively being good girl dads at the time.
Right.
And,
Right.
Even though it kind of made it popular, but whatever works, you know what I'm saying? Whatever it takes to get you to do what you need to do as a father, then that's what it is. And so I definitely appreciate that,
So true.
coming
So
out of
true.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true.
Another thing that you mentioned about, you said that you had a girl first, right? And so I've had a lot of fathers on here. So I only have one biological child, and that is my daughter. But a lot of us fathers that's been on here, that's one of the things that's been said often. Like, I'm glad I had the daughter first, And I always say I believe our daughters bring out the best part of us, or they have the best part of us, like when we see them, you see everything that's positive, at least me. And I like to speak for myself, but I think it's probably general all the way around, that most girl dads, when they see their daughters, they can see the best parts of themselves that's in her, and so it makes us operate a little differently when we're raising them. And sometimes as with boys, you raising them to be just like you, good or bad. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's like, you ain't out doing necessarily the right things, but then you be like, well, this is my little man. So you teach him that same thing. But with your daughters, you like, okay, I'm only going to teach her the right things, and so we come into it with a different mindset a lot of times when we have daughters. So especially those of us that have daughters first, then it's like, yeah, so you have that mind shift change.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say to that. I think, I just like I said, I used to teach, and one thing I said was I have to be open. I have to be the ability to take in information, specifically from my daughter at this point. It's going to be critical for our continued communication,
Mm-hmm.
because if she can't trust me with information, then that communication could be lost, and I wouldn't want that to happen. So I think, having worked in higher ed and academia and talking to the students, I done heard a myriad of all types of crazy recklessness that it's like, okay, well, whew, if I know to say that, at least I know how to just say it.
Right.
But we all just trying to learn and figure this whole world and life thing out, and hopefully we can just run across people to give us some better advice sometimes.
Yeah.
So I know it may not always come from me directly for my daughter. So, but that's all we can hope for. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So that kind of brings me to my other question then is, as fathers, we're constantly teaching our daughters, on a day-to-day basis. But what is something that you've learned from your daughter that she's taught you, even in the midst of you being a father? Is like, okay, you just taught me something.
My daughter is very observant. But I think one thing she may have taught me more was a imagination, just rekindling my imagination from when I was a kid. Obviously children live in the world that they make up things and kind of
Mm-hmm.
fantasy, and it just allows me to be happier. You know what I'm saying? Having more joy and expressing it more. That's probably it. And it's also, I'm a social scientist. From the social aspect of it, just watching a, an infant human mind develop and move up is just. I enjoy it from that aspect, and not to say that my child is a science experiment, but just to see like her vocabulary progress and her ability to make decisions, critical thought progression. Now we're reading and things. She's going through words, and all this progression happens in week by week type of basis, and it just excites the nerd in me, I guess, to see that. And it just reminds me, man, I was 7 years old and I learned how to play chess. I taught myself on a computer. So it's like, wow, I think about it, I'm like, man, she ain't that far off. It's like,
Right.
that's crazy. So I just continue to allow her to just think and do and be creative in her own right. And I try to give her activities that, keep that going because the world is theirs.
All right. All
It
right.
gave me
So
a lot of hope for the
yeah,
future.
yeah. All right. So I got two more questions before we go to the next segment of the podcast. So as a father, we go through our day-to-day raising our child, and then sometimes we sit back and look and see how far they've come, with our input. So just as a father, what is probably one of your biggest accomplishments you feel as being a father, that something that you've done that's like you look at it and be like, okay, I did a good job with that, concerning your daughter?
Um, hmm. I mean, it goes back to just building that relationship. The fact that, especially like during the COVID and things, I spent a lot of intentional time with her, and I go over things. I don't. It's not, I don't just say it and that's just what it is. But I try to explain things to her. I don't really do, the baby talk. I explain things to her, and she may not understand everything about what I explain, but she's understanding the world. And she's understanding the world in the way that an adult needs to understand it. Because one of the philosophies I had, or I found, or came to the conclusion of was I'm not raising a child, I'm raising an adult
Mm-hmm.
that hasn't became an adult yet. So I need to have her and I'm an older guy with a child. I'm not young. I'm not going to be able to explore the world with her like somebody who may have had their child when they were 18 or 20 or something. So I have to give her a lot of wisdom in the dose of she's probably going to be on her own a lot when she's like 15, 16. I was like that only because I was just raised to be pretty independent, but she's going to have to be. She'll have to be. And I need her to understand the world in a very quick amount of time. So the best I can explain things and extrapolate thoughts and ideas so she can be a critical thinker about things, the easier that's going to be when she has to do things on her own. And that's what I'm here. I mean, that's what we're here for, is to help them be adults. That's my thought.
Right, right. Okay, okay. So on the opposite side of that, oftentimes I talk about, especially on this podcast, is one of the things that I regret that I didn't do with my daughter when she was younger. She had a daddy-daughter dance, and I had to work that night. So I said, well, I'll miss this one, but I'll catch the next one. And she probably was like 6 or 7. And like I shared earlier, my daughter's going to be 21. It never was the next one. And so I miss that. So that's one of my regrets. I don't think it bothers her, but it still bothers me. And so as a father, what would be something, because the reason why I asked this question, because I know we don't always get it right, and so I always think about my very first guest was a brand new father who's at the time when we recorded, his daughter was only like 2 months old. So he's fresh, first child and first daughter, and so I always want to just acknowledge the fact that we don't always get it right. And so, but being able to acknowledge that, we made some mistakes. And so that's one of my mistakes. And so looking at your yourself with your daughter, what would be something that, could be looked at as a regret, or just something that you'd like, yeah, maybe I should have did that a little different because it didn't turn out, maybe the way that you wanted it to?
That's an excellent question. I will say this, and I don't mean to say it in a with an air, put on. I don't think I have any specific regret on anything because I try to be intentional. But I will say, every single time, I have her sometimes and then I don't. So like, I know some guys, they have her all the time. I have her sometimes and I don't. And when I don't, I reflect on what I did when I had her and what I could have done better. So every single time, I promise you not. I mean, I lie to you not. I have talked to other men who I knew who had I got good guy friends who are also having daughters, and I would talk to them. Hey man, I was talking to my daughter, and this came up. How would you, what would be your response for discipline on this case or whatever? I'm not with the, I don't do the physical punishment or whatever, corporal punishment. So I try to find things that will get a message across without being too difficult. I try not to scream. Well, I don't like screaming anyway, but I don't like to raise my voice at my daughter. But it's new to me. Some of my male friends, they got children that like you, children's older. And so they can say, oh yeah, I do this and did that and did this and stuff. So it's just a constant circle of executing something and then going back, revising it, looking at what I did right or wrong. Did I like the response or whatever the case? It's very cerebral. It's very logical. I'm not saying everybody would do that or can do that, but for me to have the ability to be with her at a certain time and then that time ends and now I'm not with her, I can reflect on it literally on a weekly basis. So in that regard, there are small things that I've always tried to tweak as far as my communication with her, as far as the experiences and the outcomes of those experiences. Sometimes I had to key in on, she was mad not because she wasn't trying to listen, but because she was trying to get the answer herself. And there may have been a time where maybe I should have stepped back instead of pushing my agenda or my idea on her. So those type of things are things that I constantly just go through in my own mind. So I don't mean to say it as like I'm the grand knower of things, but that's just how I process it. Is always constant read and response or feedback loop.
Yeah, and that's great. And you said something that I definitely want to point out, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. Was you actually went to other fathers and said, "Hey, how do I do this? What's the best thing for us?" And I applaud you for that. And that's why I'm glad I had you on, because I think that's a big message for us. Like we talked about earlier, that not necessarily having the information and say, okay, I went and looked for it. Right. I went and looked for what that looked like to be a good father. And then not only did I look for it, in online and books and things like that, but then I actually went to fathers as well as going to daughters. Like you said, you went to your sister and then talked to them. So I think that is very important for us, and even a tip for the fathers, daughters, and mothers that's listening to this. Go around to your friends that have kids that you in your eyes are good parents and you like that relationship, and even some of your own parents or grandma, grandpa, and aunts and uncles who you look at as great parents. You go to them and ask them, hey, how do I work through this? This is what I'm facing with my child. I'm kind of uncertain about which way to go and what would be the best outcome. And the fact that you had the mindset to even do that is great, and I applaud you for that. And I definitely want my listeners to hear that you're not in this alone. Whether you're the father or the daughter, you're not in this alone. You can go to the other fathers and say, hey, I might not be doing this right, but what is your advice? And I applaud you for that. I think that's great. So we're gonna jump real quick into the next segment of the podcast. So the next segment of the podcast is called the Getting to the Core segment. And so the Getting to the Core segment, we talk a little bit about the ebook, The Core Four, which is the core four values that every daughter should get from her father, which is an ebook that I wrote from my own life experiences and raising my own daughters. And so you can get your copy at ebooksbyejames.com. Again, that's ebooksbyejames.com. And we talk about the four core values that every daughter should get from her father. And so those four core values are guidance, affirmation, love and affection, and protection. And so, of those four values that I mentioned, just in your own eyes, when you look at how you wanted to raise your daughter and how you raise your daughter, which of those four would probably be the most important to you, the most important value to instill in your daughter?
I I would say the love and affection part was probably the most important. And I think that encompasses all the other three, the protection, affirmation, and guidance. Because if you love someone, you don't want to see them get hurt. So you want to try to give them some advice on what to do so they don't get hurt in the first place. And that's also part of protection. I don't want you to get, messed up. You gave it a good example in the book about doing a down payment for the car, when the better advice might be, hey, why don't we just work on your credit so that way you don't have to worry about down payments, and you can go in there and you can start learning financial responsibility on that level.
Right.
That doesn't come, you know what? Okay, so it's an interesting point, because this is one thing, I think this is why I was a teacher, but they said that men love through teaching. We don't teach people we don't care about.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make sense? Does it resonate that I wouldn't give somebody the advice and wisdom of the ages if I don't really particularly have a concern for them? We don't just do that. We care. We show how we care about, hey, you see this bump and bruise right here? Don't do what I did when I did that. I got a look, I got a war wound. My leg was cut open. Hey, man, wear the gear. Like, the gear is your life. My head hit the pavement. I had a full face helmet on. Wear the gear. We don't say that to people if we don't care. We care, so we show it through an extension of, hey, take these experiences, take this knowledge, and move it forward. And so I think that's part of love and affection. Also, on the affection side is the ability to hear my daughter out. I definitely try to ask her, what's on her mind about things. Give her a little bit of agency in her, child life. Hey, what do you think we should do next? Or what's a good idea? Do you like to go here or there? That type of stuff is allowing her to have some level of control in her life, which I found out has helped her behavior in school, because she feels like there's a place where someone's not always telling her what to do all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So just being able to allow her to get her ideas out there, and the creativity and backing it up. Yeah, I think I would say love and affection is probably at the top, and everything else is not too far behind it.
Right. All right, love it. So last question before I let you go. So the book is the core four, just the core four values. But if it could be the core five, and you can add the fifth one, what value would that be?
Patience. My daughter has I think she gets, and I could be wrong, but I think it seemed like it comes from me. When I was a child, because of I was pretty smart. I'm not saying this to kind of, but I'm just saying it's a pretty smart child, pretty bright child. And when students in the class didn't get the right answer, or they couldn't, read the words that I could read or whatever, I would get impatient with them. And I see my daughter does that. She gets impatient when things don't just immediately work the way that they need to work. And so I've had to work with her about doing like breathing exercise, take a step back, count count to three, inhale, breathe. We can figure it out. I need her to understand, and not just for her, but also on my part, patience of the raising a child and all of the things that happen. And I can thank the Lord that my daughter wasn't like, running all off the walls and breaking stuff and drawing all on the plate on the world and everything. But just still having patience with her as she goes through her developmental stages and processes, especially at night, trying to get them to go to bed. It's always a patience testing process. But the more it happens, the more patient I can be. So I would put patience up there, not just for something for her to learn, but something that I would also put in as that dynamic that's necessary for that girl dad relationship.
All right, that's good, man. So, Deuce, man, I definitely appreciate you being on, man. I love this conversation. I want you to have the last word, right? And I want you to leave us with a word of advice for the fathers or the daughters or inspiration, however you feel. But I want you to leave us with a word that can be beneficial to the audience. And if you want to leave your social media handles and things of that nature, for us to follow you, for our listeners to follow you, you can use that. You can leave that also. So I'll give you a couple seconds to kind of think about that. To my listeners, first of all, let me say thank you guys for tuning in once again to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. Make sure that you guys are checking out our websites. Our main website, the dealhealfulfill.org website, is the website that you can find out more about me, to have me come out as a speaker, as a workshop facilitator for your school, your organization. We definitely would like to come out and work with you guys. So you can go to dealhealfulfill.org and find out more about that. Also, check out our inspirational t-shirt line at Deal 2 Heal Tees. That's Deal, the number 2, healtees.com. You can go there to find out our inspirational t-shirt line. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. You guys go there and check out our inspirational tees. And last but not least, you can go to ebooksbyejames.com. Of course, we talked about the Core 4. The Core 4 is there, can be found at ebooksbyejames.com. Also there, you can also find the ebook From Males to Men. I didn't forget about our sons. So I do have a ebook for just helping our sons as they grow into manhood, called From Males to Men. There's also some other ebooks that's there also. So make sure you're checking out our main website again, dealhealfulfill.org. Our t-shirt line at deal2healtees.com. And last but not least, our ebooks at ebooksbyejames.com. And also make sure that you guys subscribe to our text line. You can text the word subscribe to the number 866-326-0730 to receive text messages about new episodes and book releases and event information as it comes out. Make sure you guys go check that out. Also, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And one of the things that we do, we have free virtual workshops every quarter of the year talking about forgiveness, what it is, what it's not, what it means to forgive, forgiveness of the world, forgiveness of each other, and even forgiveness of ourselves. And so these workshops is completely free. Again, we have them every quarter of the year. So whenever you listen to this podcast, either one just ended or one is coming up. So you can go to forgivenessmission.org eventbrite.com to find out when the next free virtual workshop will be, or you can just go to Eventbrite to register for the forgiveness workshop. Last but not least, I told you guys that you could win $100 from the podcast. And so you can win $100 from the podcast by joining our super subscriber contest. What does that mean? First, you must subscribe to our YouTube channel, to our Facebook page, and to our podcast on Spotify. And then text the word WIN, WIN, to the number 866-326-0730 to qualify to win the $100. The contest is ongoing and it's random, which means once you're in, you can always win. You don't have to re-enter after that. Once you're in it, you're always in it. So you guys can win $100. Also, make sure when you text the word WIN, WIN, to the number 866-326-0730 that you include your name, your phone number, and your email address so that we can contact you if you are our winner. We have people that's texting the word win, but they don't leave their information. So we can't even call you back if you won, right? So make sure you leave your information, your name, phone number, and email address so we can call you if you are our $100 winner from the podcast. So, Mr. Deuce, again, thank you so very much. I want you to have the last word. But before I give you the floor, I just want to share this quick story because we were talking about motorcycles, and I told you I used to ride. My very first time riding, I just learned how to ride, right? So I got my helmet on. I'm riding my uncle's bike, and I get to a intersection where it's a T. So I'm at the point where I got to turn left or right, and I'm in the left-hand turning lane. And the guy comes up and get right on my back wheel, just like right on my bumper. And as soon as the light turned green, he's he's blowing a horn. And I'm nervous because it's my first time actually on the street driving. And also I'm riding a crotch rocket, right? Which I had never rode one before. I was used to riding like the cruisers. So I try to hurry up and get out of his way. And so I hit the gas. The bike takes off. I end up sliding out, fell over, whatever. I got up. I was okay. I had a little scratches on me. The bike had some damage. I ended up having to pay like $1,000 to get my uncle bikes fixed, whatever. But the guy drove off and left me on the ground, and another guy pulled over and helped me pick the bike up and everything. And that was my very first time actually riding on the street. You know what I mean? And that happened. So I still rode, I didn't ride no more crotch rockets. I was done with those. But I bought my first bike, which was a 700 Honda Shadow, and I was riding since then. But it's been a little while. I haven't ridden in a while. I sold my bike and I might get another one another day, but that's for right now. I'm good. I stick with the four wheels.
Yeah, I thought you was gonna say that the bike stalled out on you. You was trying to switch gears and the Dre stalled out.
that bike took off, man. I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah,
it took off.
Yeah,
so good, man.
I started on the cruiser and then I went to the sport bike. So
yeah. Well, I never liked the sport bikes, and the only reason I even rode it that day because my uncle was like, go ahead and take it for a spin. And I was like, and he was like, no, just take it for a spin. And again, like I had my helmet and stuff on, which definitely was a blessing. But I never really liked it, the sport bikes. I was always a cruiser person. So yeah, after that, I never even got back on another sport bike. So
yeah, that's the beauty of it, man. The ride is just always fun, whether you're on a cruiser or a sport bike. It's just fun. Yeah. I ride my father, I ride with the cruisers, and then on my bike, sport bike. So yeah, it's definitely fun on both sides.
All right. And to all y'all dads that's out here that's thinking about getting a bike, you heard what the man said earlier. Wear your protection. All right. Don't be a fool. Don't be trying to be cool. Like I said, I fell. I had my helmet and stuff on. I was good. He fell. He did get hurt a little bit, but could have been worse if he hadn't had his stuff on. So we're fathers now. We got daughters. We got to be here in our daughter's life. So make sure we're wearing our protection if we out here getting on these bikes. All right. Absolutely. Now back to our regular program.
I talk out the way.
Yeah. So again, Deuce, I definitely appreciate you being on, and I want you to have the last word. So the floor is yours.
Okay, so first of all, everybody can follow me right here, Deuce Alston on Facebook, The Intropreneur on Instagram. You can follow me on either one of those. I probably, follow better is on Instagram than Facebook because I don't know the message. But anyway, a thought that I can provide, I think to those fathers out there, it is absolutely vital and important to understand that regardless of the situation or perspective or scenario with your daughter, you are still an integral part of her life. Don't give up on that. Don't give up on her. And it's also up to you as the father, as the person who's been here longer, to keep the relationship intact. I think some people trying to think that, well, if the child want to reach back out to me, they'll do it. No. You're the father. You've been here longer. You be an adult. You be a man, and you keep that relationship. So that's what I would say is probably, last word.
All right. We can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again, guys and girls, once again for tuning in to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. I am your host, Earnest James, and our mission is to spread the voices of girl dads across the nation. So until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with E. James. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our podcast on all your podcast listening platforms. Also, don't keep it to yourself, but share it with someone else that the Girl Dad Discussions podcast is on the air. Until next time, be blessed.